Q sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. We have had other things. Mambo bado. Mambo bado. We have had niliwawarn. Ni upanga niliopewa, sio wa kukatakata mboga. Mimi sijawahi sikia mambo ya watu kupotea. The mountain is rumbling. I do not know what or who will acquiesce Mulima. There's a lot of volcanicity taking place in the mountain. The volcano is cooking. It is stewing. And the truth of the matter is that the mountain is not happy. The mountain feels it is under siege. Political siege. Even economic siege. How do you demolish houses or buildings to replace them with other buildings? You replace the private demolished buildings and replace them with government, so-called government buildings to accommodate people. My name's Manini Nganga George, mkazi wa Molo constituency, specifically Albagon. Today I feel it is good to mention a thing or two on what is happening in this country, Kenya, our country, our beloved country. We have been given a political agenda, and this political agenda has been set by an individual. And this political agenda has been going on for the last couple of years. And this agenda comes in tidbits. And every other day we have an agenda, if not a sub-agenda, that we are discussing, we are hotly contesting. And after that, when that is done and dusted, then another one is set immediately to succeed this agenda that has just closed. Consequently, it appears as if Kenya has been on a roller coaster, a political roller coaster. And if you look at the latest happenings, like the well-orchestrated political impeachment of a deputy president in Kenya, who was in the ballot with the president, meaning he too was elected by the people. This deputy president has finally been impeached. And the government that has impeached him is the same government he fought tooth and nail for its formation. And he risked everything for the formation of that government. The same government has now not only alienated him, but it has finally impeached him. And apparently, he's being pushed outside the political circle of this country. This same government is so courageous that it has now risked its own political limbs by going headlong into this impeachment, and this impeachment is couched in divisions, regional divisions. The impeachment was carried out as a major priority, whereby his friends were used to isolate him and to throw mud at him, drag his character and name through the mud, risking the loss of 47% of the total votes that formed the current government in 2022. Well, we can say, as the French do, the French say, c'est la or c'est la vie, meaning that's life. That's a political life. But is it so, really? Is the unity of this country in doubt or in question? Or is it at risk? If you look at that impeachment, which of course is now behind us, we are now on a new agenda. You will find that it was well calculated, such that even the appeal and the other cases that the impeached deputy president had taken to court have all been given a new date, late January 2025, making the whole thing irrelevant in the sense that it has been overtaken by time and it has been taken by events. And when one looks at what is happening in this roller coaster, you remember some things that you have heard in passing. For instance, we have heard other things. Mambo bado. Mambo bado. We have heard niliwawarn. Ni upanga niliopewa, sio wa kukatakata mboga. Mimi sijawahi sikia mambo ya watu kupotea in reference to abductions and the disappearances of people. We go ahead and see a look at the coronation of the current selected deputy president. And like court poets before him, in the likes of Peter Olo Aringo before him, when he was sworn, the first thing that he did was to swear allegiance to the president. I thought what he should have done was to swear his allegiance to the Constitution of Kenya. If you look at our parliament, it is literally in disarray. And if you look at what is happening in that parliament, after a heated and full house during the impeachment, today the majority leader is crying because there is no quorum in parliament. Nothing. They cannot discuss anything, they cannot pass anything because there's no quorum. In the state of parliament playing its role, oversight role, and of course, it acting as a checks and balances institution, it has become an orchestra, reminding us of this saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Of a truth, the mountain is rumbling. I do not know what or who will acquiesce Mulima. There's a lot of volcanicity taking place in the mountain. The volcano is cooking. It is stewing. And the truth of the matter is that the mountain is not happy. The mountain feels it is under siege. Political siege. Even economic siege. It also feels it is also socially under siege. Because you see, the mountain feels that it can no longer worship freely in what they believe in. They cannot gather and sing their songs. They cannot gather and dance their dances freely. What is happening? What is it? If you look at the demolitions that took place along Nairobi River, along Madari River, the demolitions were done ostensibly because the buildings were on a riparian land. But what is interesting is that a few days later, after the demolitions, the same government that supervised the demolitions went to that site and said loud and clear that the space that these demolitions have taken place will now be used to put up what we are calling free housing or something. How do you demolish houses or buildings to replace them with other buildings? You replace the private demolished buildings and replace them with government, so-called government buildings to accommodate people. If you look at who supervised the demolitions, wasn't the Ministry of Interior involved? Who was in charge of the Ministry of Interior at that time? One asks this question. Why weren't there other demolitions taking place in the city? In places like Kangemi, where previously we saw and witnessed a city father allocate a riparian land, in actual fact, a dam area, to his people to put up houses. But we have not seen these houses being demolished. Why? This dam was supplying fresh water to Nairobi. If you look at what is happening in the country, one feels that, or one gets an impression that this plane, this passenger plane, is on autopilot. And actually, the pilot has left the cockpit and is now at the back, talking or chit-chatting with and entertaining passengers. As I said earlier, the French would say this: "Qui sera, sera." Whatever will be, will be. And you look at the government responding to disappearances and abductions. The IG, Mr. Kanja, says he doesn't know who is abducting who in this country. Meaning there is a phantom grouping that is roaming this country, Kenya, abducting and secretly keeping Kenyans unseen, incommunicado. This phantom grouping is unknown. The evil abductors and killers are unknown. I would pray and humbly ask Kanja to speedily investigate and arrest this fear-instilling phantom grouping so that we eventually get to know who they are and how many actually in number they have abducted and killed. Kanja says during the demonstrations or later, 495 police officers were injured, of course, assumedly by the demonstrators. And 347 civilians were injured. But we are not told how many were killed or dead among that number. And how did they meet their deaths? If we come to the mountain, as I said earlier, there is rumblings. People are groping in the dark. There are voices that let's form a political party. That is, the impeached deputy president ought to form a political party. I would feel strongly that he shouldn't form that political party, because we already have about 33 or 34 political parties in and around the mountain. He should join one of those parties, such that at the end of it, those same parties can form a coalition of the willing. If he does form a political party on his own, another political party, it will simply flow into this grand plan of further dividing the mountain. On the question of the mountain supporting the recently coronated deputy president, I also take the same feeling. I have the same feelings, whereby if again we start saying or arguing that we should or we ought to all of us rally behind the recently coronated deputy president, simply because he's coming from the mountain, we will simply be going into that trough to eat and drink from that trough that has already been made for us. And we would have stamped our seal of acceptance that we have been played and we have gone right into dancing this political division dance. That's my feeling. That's my take. Thank you very much.
Asante.